Would you like to live life more holistically? I've got 10 tips for you today that will help you dip your toe in and begin living more holistically in 10 different ways. I'm going to give you a tip for each one, so stay tuned for that, along with a couple of free gifts along the way. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, let other people know about this, other women in particular. This channel is all about supporting women to step into their truest, most authentic selves and feel that sense of empowerment, feel like they're thriving, step away from that feeling of like emptiness, burnout, like you're dying inside, and really reclaim your life, right? Reclaim your life, reinvent yourself, and step into what you've been knowing on some level is possible. So tip number 1, you have to look at all domains of life. Now, what does that mean? Well, a holistic lifestyle is about the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, okay? And so each part matters, but if we only look at the individual parts, we're not really looking at the whole of our being, our life, our existence, okay? And we can do this in different layers and different expansions and contractions of how we see things. But the first tip for living a holistic life is really about paying attention to all domains of your life. So if you're feeling unhappy, maybe you have a general mood or feeling of being lost or feeling a bit empty or burnt out or overwhelmed, you're gonna wanna look at, okay, what's going on in my relationships? What's going on in my health and wellness, my physical fitness? What's going on in my finances? What's my environment like? What's my work life like? What about my creativity and my overall sense of spirituality? You want to look at all these different domains of your life, just one at a time. Just look at different pieces. And just the simple tip to step into this is maybe just sit down, take a moment to just ponder that, think about, well, what am I doing to improve my relationships or even feel fulfilled in relationships? Do I have a sense of community? Do I have a good communication with those I'm in relationship with? What's going on in my finances? Is that creating a lot of stress? We need to look at these different pieces because each part, each domain of our life will spill over into others and it affects the whole. So that's tip number 1. Now, tip number 2, believe it or not, is virtue. Now, virtue is defined by Aristotle as the mean between the too little and the too much. Many of us don't think too much about virtue. We tend to hear the idea of a virtuous life and we think of it a little bit more maybe on religious terms, where it's like, being pious and virtuous and all of that. And sadly, when we look at it in those terms, it can really make us feel small, like we're only supposed to obey and follow the rules and toe the line and so on and so forth. But if we are really practicing virtues actually are practices. They are not something to know about or concepts to understand. They're practices. And my first gift that I want to offer to you is my balance and empowerment cards. Now, these are free download. You can get the link in the description. They will be so helpful to practicing virtue. They are going to show you 12 different virtues, 12 different areas of your life, not only the virtue itself, but the ways in which we go to the concept of too little or too much in our life. Now, why is this important for holistic living? Well, when we're looking at things holistically, we really do want to find balance. We want to find that sense of what am I doing that's too much or too little, right? Not enough kind of thing. And how do we find that balance point of empowerment, as I like to call it, where we know that we're walking that path where we not only have that sense of empowerment and virtue, but we understand the extremes. The extremes are not to be ignored. Again, if we're looking holistically, we want to pay attention to all of it. We want to know what the too much is and the too little is and really find that balance for ourselves. So virtue is a really important piece for living a holistic life. Tip number 3, attention to nature. Now, I've shared other videos about my love affair with nature. Nature is, by nature, holistic, right? Nothing happens by itself. There's all this communication going on that we don't even see, often below the surface. There is so much that we can learn from the rhythms of nature, the archetypes found in nature, and really looking at how is that playing out within us? You know, if we look at the seed, like an acorn, you know, that's going to become the great oak, what is the seed within us that wants to become? What does it need? What kinds of things might be missing? Nature can be a really powerful way for us to live more holistically simply by paying attention to it, because we start to see that nothing happens in isolation. We start to experience it. We can watch the rhythm of the seasons pass through the year, maybe in a nature sit spot, and just really honor what is happening and unfolding. And that helps us to tune in to the fact that we too have rhythms and cycles and processes and unfoldings and, you know, life cycles that happen within us, literally and figuratively, right? And so just attention to nature is a powerful way of learning to live more holistically. Now, mindfulness and awareness. This is number 4, the idea of being more mindful and aware of what we do. I often call this noticing when I'm working with my clients. What do you notice? What do you notice about your emotions? What do you notice about the thoughts that are going on? What do you notice about the triggers, the things that trigger you? When we start having that mindfulness and paying attention, and this involves things like, I mean, mindfulness in itself is a whole other deep topic we could go into, and I've done some topics on that on this channel, but this idea that we really need to be present and aware and understand what triggers us, what lights us up, what takes us out of ourselves. You know, what are we actually doing? Are we saying yes when we mean no, or vice versa? Those kinds of things. So mindfulness is tip number 4 in a pattern of living more holistically. Number 5, I believe, as a tip for living more holistically is journaling. And this brings me to the second gift I want to offer you. And that is, you'll see it in the free resources in the description, my journaling workbook. It's called Journaling as a Path to Come Home. Now, journaling can help us because the act of journaling in itself is holistic. It's engaging our will forces with the writing, the actual writing, but it's also engaging our thoughts. And if we're present enough and aware and practicing that presence and mindfulness of number 3, we're going to be tuning into our emotions, noticing what's going on for ourselves, and allowing ourselves to explore in a broader perspective, in a broader way. And we can do journaling in so many different ways. You'll see in the workbook lots of tips and ways to look at journaling. And because it can be approached in so many ways, we can literally journal in various aspects of our life, even in the different domains of our lives, and begin to weave those things together to help us feel more holistic in our living. Number 6. Number 6 is attention to the feminine. Now, in our patriarchal dominance culture, we are taught to go, go, go and make things happen and focus on the plan and the strategy and the tactics and the structure. And all of that is good. We don't want to forget the masculine. Unfortunately, though, we have become so unhealthy in this excess masculine, and we've been taught that that's what we're supposed to do. We've lost sight of our emotional realm, which is much more in the realm of the feminine. The concept of holistic living in itself is a feminine principle. The feminine looks at the totality, has diffuse awareness, is able to look at the way things flow and connect with one another. The feminine is always looking at the whole and not just the parts. Masculine attention is much more focused, and it breaks things down and it reduces things to focus on things. And that can be great when we want to focus on how we're going to, you know, like if we were in survival mode, how we're going to get our dinner that night or whatever it is. That's a fantastic thing, or the structure of how we want to create our day. But when we ignore the flow, when we forget to pay attention to the bigger picture, we forget so much of what's happening in life and how life is asking to unfold. So make sure we're paying attention to the feminine. Number 7, nourishment. Now, nourishment is not just about nutrition. Nutrition is a big part of that. But when I say nourishment, I'm talking about nourishment on a holistic level, the whole of our being. How are you nourishing your soul, your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit? How is that happening? And this is this has a lot to do with input. So you might even just begin by thinking about what's the input that you're getting. What are you ingesting that you then have to digest and integrate into your being? That's what nourishment is. If you're ingesting a lot that is difficult to digest, then you're probably not going to feel very well nourished. You're not going to feel very enlivened. You want to ingest and have the input of plenty of sleep, good, healthy, well-rounded foods, quality friendships and relationships, a beautiful environment, not too much chaos and noise. These are little pieces that we can do. Pick one, just pick one in any of the examples I'm offering and dip your toe in and begin to say, okay, what am I going to do for nourishment to begin considering this more holistic approach? All right, number 8. Number 8 is movement. All right, when we move, we are able to see things differently. We are able to feel things differently. And this isn't just about physical fitness. This is about getting out of your comfort zone, right? Movement is also the transformation and transmutation of energy, which is one of the laws of nature. We want to keep moving in our life. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be stuck. Movement is also a very feminine concept, the concept of flow. But we want to look at, are we moving in our day? In what ways are we moving? In what ways are we stuck? What is moving, what's not moving, what's possible, and so on and so forth. We want to be looking at that. And that might be by beginning with simple movement, like doing some simple stretches, you know, when you wake up in the morning. I love when I wake up and my dog gets out of bed and she immediately, I call it puppy yoga. You know, she's doing her downward dog, literally, and just stretching her body and immediately moving to get ready and shift gears and prepare. I love to think about what's the movement when I shift from one task to another. What kind of mood do I have to be in? What kind of mindset do I want to put myself in? We want to think about how we're moving through our day. That helps us take a more holistic approach. Number 9 is self-love. Now, self-love is a very tall order, but if we don't love ourselves, who will, right? If we don't have love for ourselves, we're not going to be able to see all of the love that is coming at us every single day from all different directions, all right? And so this is about practicing. And I'll be doing another video on self-love and how to practice it, how to cultivate it, how to help it to blossom within you, because it's not easy and there's all kinds of reasons why it's not easy, and I'll get into that. So stay tuned for a future video on the topic of loving yourself more. But the reason that is so important for a holistic lifestyle is that when we can feel well within ourselves, when we feel a sense of good self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love, everything else begins to fall into place. Again, holistically. So on many levels, there's this aspect of selfhood, which even our self is not in singularity. It's not in isolation. It's in relation to everything else. So when we can love ourselves, when we can accept ourselves, when we can be whole within ourselves and feel that sense of wholeness, we are better able to live a holistic lifestyle. And number 10 is well-being. And this would include a lot of the other things we've already talked about. All of those things are going to promote well-being. But what I'm talking about with well-being has to do with really paying attention to your self-care. You know, are you paying attention when something's bothering you, or are you just pressing through and ignoring it? Are you paying attention when you get these little signs and whispers from your inner wisdom and your inner intuition? Or are you just, ignoring it and going forth? Are you, pushing your body? Are you not getting enough sleep? Are you not considering how you feel within yourself? It's that good old concept of, is all well with your soul? And if it's not, why not? What is your well-being? This isn't just about like healthy lifestyle. Yeah, a healthy lifestyle, something that brings us health and vitality, is going to help our well-being. But I hope that by now you can see that well-being, true well-being, looking at well-being is well-being in all aspects of our life. Well-being is how we show up, and are we able to feel well within ourselves even when life doesn't feel so great, we can have a tremendous sense of well-being even when we're going through a really challenging and difficult time. So these are 10 principles. I hope that they're helpful to dip your toe in. I invite you, share in the comments if there's one or two that you're practicing already, or maybe that you want to try to practice or pay more attention to. Because as we begin to look at these different pieces, it helps us to remember who we are, helps us to connect to our values, because we're paying attention to all of it. We're looking at all the different ways we're off or we're out of alignment. And when we do that, we align with a better vision for ourselves that feels more authentic, more true, and we're able to reinvent ourselves, recreate ourselves, rebirth ourselves, ultimately look at this kind of new path that is looking at the big picture rather than kind of having this narrow focus that most of us are used to as we press on through life. So I hope those are helpful. Share in the comments what you've noticed. Be sure to subscribe and share this with others, and click the like button. All of that helps the channel and helps more women feel empowered seeing some of these tools and tips. I can't wait to talk to you next time.